On Labrador Morning, we had decided to dedicate a segment of our Friday's show to talk about books. We launched the segment in anticipation of Canada Reads. Now, that contest has now been postponed, but the pandemic is one more reason to pick up a book to travel, at least in your thoughts. So we reached out to book lover Wayne Button in Labrador West, and he joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Janice. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm hanging in there. I think I got enough time now where I think I can write my own book probably if I want.
I understand. Yeah, you've had to close your chiropractic clinic.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, had to do what was right. Want to be safe for everybody. I mean, first time. Like I've been practicing 10 years. I've never been off for 2 weeks, even like during my honeymoon. So bit of a change for me, but just trying to be productive, doing a lot of reading, working out, trying to do. My wife loves it. She always got a list for me every day.
I'd say there's a lot of husbands out there with lists every day. So what have you been reading?
The most recent book I read was The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, and I actually didn't buy it. My wife bought it over Christmas. We try to buy books that the other one will also like, and not just one of us. So I picked it up. It looked interesting, and I loved it. It was absolutely amazing. Best book I read in 2020 so far. I gotta say, it was an amazing book.
I've heard a lot about that book, and I've known people who read it and said it is a great book. So tell us a little bit more about what it's about.
Yeah, so The Tattooist of Auschwitz is about a man who finds himself obviously in a concentration camp in the late 1940s and basically doing anything he can to survive, and ends up with the job as a tattooist, where he actually tattoos people when they come into the concentration camp. Ends up being a very somewhat powerful job in the concentration camp that allows him some liberties, and throughout it, he actually finds love, and it actually starts off as a very beautiful, like, history type story. You know, there's violence and trauma, but then it turns into like more of a love story. So very caught me off guard. I got to be honest.
Is that what you liked about it? That it caught you off guard?
Yeah, totally. Sometimes it's good to know what a book's about before you read it, but sometimes it's not. So I really liked it in the beginning because I'm a bit of a history buff and learning about concentration camps and how he had this job that allowed him all these liberties, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the book, it really drifts more into a love story. Yeah, it was amazing because I'm not a guy. If I knew it was a love story, I probably would have picked it up. So it really caught me off guard, and it's a beautiful book. I got to be honest.
So who would you recommend read this book?
You know, anybody that's into history, especially in World War II, but also anybody who wants a good, true love story as well. I mean, this is something that I actually recommend to people who maybe they're not into history, but they really like a love story, because that was probably the part of the book I liked the most near the end. That I found myself seeing if they were going to end up together or not. Like so anybody that's into love story as well.
Now, you mentioned that you and your wife share books. Has she had the opportunity to read this one?
She has, and she's on a really big one right now, 400 pages. She got like 50 pages left, so I think she's going to read it next. But no, she hasn't read it herself yet. But a lot of people, when I posted it on Facebook, like you said, a lot of people have read it, and apparently there's a part two about another woman that's in this book. It tells her story and where she ends up after the concentration camp. So definitely going to look into that.
Now, another book, Wayne, that you've just read is the one by former Attorney General of Canada and Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould. How did you find it?
Well, I got to be honest. If I'm going to do book reviews, I can't give them all good ones. And I was a little disappointed. It's kind of my fault because I didn't look into really what the book was about. The book mentions in the beginning about reconciliation, so I wanted to buy a book that taught me a little bit about Indigenous culture and taught me a little bit about, you know, what reconciliation looks like to them. So I figured, why not buy a book by Jody Wilson-Raybould, From Where I Stand. And I was a little disappointed because what it really turns out to be is just a bunch of her speeches. And like most politicians, the speeches have the same theme over and over and over again. They seem really repetitive, boring. A lot of legal jargon is used in her speech. So it didn't really get me what I wanted in terms of learning about Indigenous culture or reconciliation.
Do you find that when you're in a book that you don't really enjoy, do you keep reading it right to the end?
I try. I won't lie. There's been 2 or 3 that I just quit and give up on because it's so boring, and it's taking away time from other books that are not so boring. So this one was a struggle. I read about probably 5 to 10 pages a night. I openly admit it was probably something I read in bed because it helped me fall asleep. So it took me a long time to read this one. But yeah, I feel bad saying it, but it just wasn't what I expected. I really wanted a good political opinion book on reconciliation, and that's not what I got.
Now, those are 2 books that you've already read. What are you reading currently?
Right now, I'm reading. Oh man, I can't think the title, but it's the sequel for the Tattooist book about human culture, and it's the second one, and it's all about artificial intelligence and the future of human beings and the future of humankind. So I'm into that. I'm about halfway through that, and that one's really good, I gotta say.
Well, we'll wait to get your review on that one next week. Thanks so much, Wayne, for joining us.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Janice.
And that was Wayne Button, our book columnist here at Labrador Morning.